I mean, this must be an extremely worrying time just for ordinary citizens of Lebanon. I mean, who don't have an axe to grind with Hezbollah or Israel, but just people who want to go about their normal daily lives. How much anxiety is there among the general population?
In the last week in particular, things have been so unusually tense. And just to put it in some perspective, and I'll give you an individual example, my building in Beirut, most apartments right now are being used by displaced Lebanese. And thousands of Lebanese are still unable to find homes or shelter in Beirut. And the last 3 days alone, some up to 300,000 Lebanese have fled their homes in southern Lebanon, as well as the southern suburbs of Beirut. And this is an eerie familiarity which goes back to the July and August 2006 war between Hezbollah and Israel. But add to that familiarity, there's NGO activity. And civil society usually takes on a heavy burden in this country. When the state is absent, civil society kicks in. And you have shelters, you have food, you have hygiene kits being distributed, and you have some Lebanese displaced that are now in public schools that have opened their doors and are housing as many as possible. And on a more, let's say, citywide level, Beirut has been very tense since last week following the pager attack, where you had 4,000 pagers that were blown up. Not just in Beirut, of course, but across the country and well into Syria. But Beirut was shaken by this, and you had ambulance sirens hours on end, rescuing maimed and blinded Hezbollah members and putting them in hospitals. And that's on a city level where whenever Hassan Nasrallah speaks as well, and he spoke several days ago, we have fighter jets on the skies of Beirut over the city, sonic booms as well, sonic booms that are chilling. Sonic boom makes it sound so neutral when I say it. It's more than that. Your house shakes, your windows reverberate. It's an explosion in the sky, and it sends terror down below. On a more national level, I think every conversation you have, whether we're in a geography that has seen war or whether you're in a part of the country that has not, at least this round, everybody is talking about what happens next. In the last few hours or so, the Israelis have hinted at a serious inclination to cross the border. And this would be the first time Israeli troops or Israeli soldiers cross the border. This hasn't happened since July and August 2006. This would be a first time since then, and we are waiting to see what the Israeli steps are. On the other side, of course, is Hezbollah, and Hezbollah has taken a serious blow this round. Hezbollah militants have been targeted. Hezbollah's top commanders have been killed in the southern suburbs of Beirut, and of course, up to 60% of their low-grade weapons have been destroyed. Add to that the pressure on Israel vis-a-vis a ballistic missile that was sent to Tel Aviv, the outskirts of Tel Aviv today. This is reminiscent of July and August. These are not precision missiles, but they're ballistic, and they're sending the signal that this is escalation that is going to continue. Now, if you'd let me go global for a moment, there is diplomatic activity underway, and there is serious attempts to try to end both what's happening in Gaza and what's happening in Lebanon. And it's unusual where Lebanon will be the conduit to Gaza, but it seems like that's at least on the table right now, and trying to end this round between Israel and Hezbollah. And as far as I know, these are discussions that are actively taking place.
When I was talking to, I don't know if you heard my conversation with the Times defence editor a moment ago, Larissa Brown, but she was saying that there are real fears now that this could escalate into a much wider Middle East war, and then sort of all bets are off. Nobody can really predict what the consequences of that would be. How likely is that in your view?
In terms of let's say first an all-out war between Hezbollah and Israel, I still at this stage don't see that happening. Meaning, I do not think the Lebanese state, as of now, will be a direct target, meaning similar to July and August 18 years ago, meaning the airport is still opened. If I'm not mistaken, she said so in the piece earlier, and that people are still flying in and out of the country. So in terms of infrastructure, that has not been targeted. This was the first target in July 2006. It hasn't been targeted yet. There have been threats to bomb the Ministry of Information. Now, I'll clarify that. Threats to evacuate the Ministry of Information. That's in the center of the city. It hasn't been hit. I think there's a lot of psychological warfare that is not at the all-out war level. And I think that would require several things to happen, which includes Israelis entering the country and Lebanon itself, meaning the state or the state's institutions, being a direct target. And a regional level, which is better answering your question, I don't think it's happening. I don't think any of these players are looking for a regional war, whether it's Hezbollah's sponsor, Iran, or whether it's Israel, or for that matter, America. I don't think there has been any inclination since October 8, one day after Hamas and Israel, October 7 last year. October 8, since Hezbollah entered this round, I think there has been no inclination to lead to a regional war, and I still don't see that happening.
And you yourself, you're located in Beirut, are you?
Yes.
How safe do you feel?
I'll answer this the most honest way possible. When you live in Lebanon, you live in a battlefield. Even when there's no war, Hezbollah and it's the largest paramilitary force in the world. It's one of the most sophisticated terrorist organizations known to man. You live in Lebanon, you're living with this group. There's a permanency to battles taking place, whether it's against Israel right now vis-a-vis Iran, or whether it's internal. Lebanese have paid a price for hosting Hezbollah. 4 years ago, 700 tons of ammonium nitrate blew up in the port. Half of the city is still recovering from that largest non-nuclear blast in modern history. Lebanon is a battlefield. Housing weapons-grade ammonium nitrate is in itself a battlefield scenario. So if you live here, you're used to it. But that said, this recent escalation, meaning the last few days in particular, seeing Lebanese enter the city with real fear in their eyes, and seeing many Lebanese searching for homes on the streets of Beirut until now, and seeing the kind of care and attention that happens in this country, and this is all despite whether these people support or oppose to Hezbollah, that doesn't really matter. Opening doors to civilians fleeing is staple to what happens here. That is happening always, whether it's this round or earlier rounds. But there is fear. And I think this fear is increasing by the hour, by the minute, and that the threats have been made. And the Israelis are at least seriously hinting at an invasion.
Well, Ronnie, my listeners really appreciate what you've told us over the last few minutes. You've really added to our knowledge. Tarek in Oxford says, this reporter is fantastic and thank you for letting him speak.